Before this video begins, I accidentally recorded the majority of this script talking about myself as the male character and my rival as the female character. That's not how it worked, so there will be some brief ad-lib bits of commentary. Hey guys, how's it going? My name's the Breph, and welcome to another challenge video. Today I'm asking the question, can you beat Pokemon Emerald with only a Shedinja with no attacking moves? Yes, this is the project I was originally working on before I stopped to release last week's Shedinja no attacking moves in Leaf Green. Having taken on board the majority of the feedback that was given to me in terms of the scripted, non-scripted style, I've decided that I'm going to do a bit of a blend of both. There are some elements that I've decided to script, and there are some elements like this intro that are sort of more freeform. I'm going to try and make it a lot easier for people to understand what I'm actually saying, although I do apologise if it comes off a little bit harder. Anyway, let's not drag this intro out, so let's talk about the rules and then let's go. So firstly, they are pretty much the same as ever. Shedinja only in battle, no items, but held items are fine. TM usage is allowed, and also, if it's a move that Shedinja can learn from any generation, 3 through to 8, then I'm allowed to use it in this run. Why? Because I'm trying to beat a game with a Pokemon with 1 HP, and I'm not going to use any attacking moves, so I'm just going to take it. One thing that was brought to my attention via Discord was that actually there are some moves that Shedinja can learn that aren't a part of Shedinja's moveset. For example, because Shedinja obviously evolves from an Nincada, any moves that Nincada can learn, and then by extension that they can learn when evolving into Ninjask, those could also be used because, in theory, you can legitimately get them on a Shedinja's moveset. I mention that because while they don't necessarily apply to the Emerald portion of this run, I wasn't too happy with how things ended last week, and with this new advice and these new strategies that were brought up to my attention in Discord, I have gone back and attempted to redo the Elite Four portion of the Fire Red Leaf Green video. So you'll just have to stay tuned for later in the video when we talk about how that went. But let's be honest, we've got a long way to go until we get anywhere near that portion of the game. So without further ado, let's crack on. The game begins and we choose female character, giving ourselves the inventive name of Breph. And I'm aware of a certain petition going around to make me say something, so just this once, I am Brephity Breph. From there, the game begins as normal. We change the time on the clock, we go across to see our neighbour, and then we head north to get our starter. In the lab, we get to bestow upon it the nickname of Whiscash. Why? Because it's supposed to be a lucky Pokemon, and I need a hell of a lot of that to get through this run. Now that we have that in the party, we have the ability to change our movesets, and like I did in the last one, we start off with the same: Double Team, Sand Attack, Confuse Ray, and Will-O-Wisp. We also give ourselves some HM slaves that conveniently spell out a very special message because, and I think we can all agree, Whiscash is better than Swampert Zwigo. And I say that because the way I've done things, we head up to fight Brendan, and he has a Mudkip. Why Mudkip? Because Marshtomp can't hit us with any of his moves, and that just proves that Whiscash is better. Anyway, Shedinja doesn't have any problems at all getting past that one, and then the game opens up to us. The first trainer that can pose us any issues is the one in the early game route who has a Tailo, who knows Peck. And yeah, that's an issue, but it's a sort of non-issue because it's the same strategy that we're going to use for every other fight. Set up the double teams, set up the sand attacks, set up the Confuse Ray, set up the Will-O-Wisp, and wait. Once we wait that battle out, we head into the Petalburg gym and assist Wally to catch his first Pokemon, a Ralts, by doing exactly diddly squat. But then nothing really happens until we reach Rustborough, where we first go into the trainer's school and speak to the teacher who gives us a quick claw. This is obviously the held item that occasionally allows you to attack first, and that will come in really handy. With that, we just have to bite the bullet and go and try and fight Roxanne. The issue here is obviously speed, and the fact remains that we will be quicker than all of her Pokemon, so levels aren't going to help us. It's just a case of resetting and trying again. And trust me, there is a lot of trying again. She has moves like Rock Tomb and I think Rock Throw, Rock Slide, one of them. But either way, we are weak to Rock type moves, and that is a big danger for us. So what could only be described as hell on earth amount of times later, we managed to beat her and claim the first badge. We leave the gym and we get confronted by a bizarre scene where some man runs away with something that doesn't belong to him, and the bloke comes out asking for his goods back. So we dive headfirst into a cave in order to claim back the briefcase of black tar heroin and rescue some old man's pet seagull, because this game couldn't get weirder if it tried. Good news is that meant that we could travel over to Jewford and attempt the second gym, Brawley. Now he has fighting types, and without wanting to sound a bit cocky, I was semi-confident going into this one. Why? Because his entire team doesn't have a single move that can hit us. So naturally we then head through the cave to Stephen, where we deliver the letter and finally get to make our way to Slateport. Here in the museum we meet Captain Stern, and just as I whisper in his ear, "I'm the captain now," we get ambushed by a couple of Team Aqua members, beating them harder than you beat your penis on a Friday night. Yes, I'm talking about you. No, not him. You. Yeah, I see you there. I know what you do. Archie comes in and he goes on a rant. He tries so desperately to explain to us about the benefits of being a vegan and gets slightly offended for some reason while we cut him off mid-sentence to bite into a big, thick, juicy burger. Anyway, this prompts him to leave, and that means that we have another fight on our hands. It's time for the dreaded second rival fight. Second mandatory rival fight. Obviously, there's the totally skippable one in Rustborough that I always seem to skip for some reason. Anyway, this fight has a main issue in Lombre, having Astonish, which is just astonishing to me. I genuinely can't tell you what it is about this fight, this one bit in particular, but it just seems like no matter how many double teams I set up, I still get hit by it. And this is talking about a game where there are moves to come that have absolutely 100% chance of hitting me no matter how many double teams I have set up. I mean, I have to deal with Shadow Punch, I have to deal with Aerial Ace, but no, I get tripped up by Astonish on a Lombre. Luckily for me though, once you get past it, the Slugma isn't that much of an issue, because you can start then spamming sand attacks and you can dodge all of those fire type attacks. And then there comes Marshtomp, and Zwiggo is going to be offended as anything here because it can't hit me and therefore makes it the worst of all of the starters and is absolutely and utterly eclipsed by Grovyle. So having proved that if you do like Mudkips, then you are statistically wrong, we make our way into Moorville and have to fight Wally at the gates to the gym. Now I'm just going to give you all 1 second to think about this. How difficult was this fight against a single non-evolved Pokemon that has no moves that can hit us? If you said very difficult, I suggest you go back to school, because no, this was a very, very simple fight, and with that, we can head in to challenge Watson. And no sooner have we head in to challenge Watson than we realise we're going off on a little bit of a grind, because we get outsped by the first Voltorb. So I did a little bit of a check on what Voltorb's stats were in comparison to mine, and I went away and I came back at a level that I thought was just a little bit too high. This was entirely my fault. I got a little bit carried away watching the videos that I was watching while I do this grinding, and yeah, we come back a little bit too high and kick off the fight in remarkably good style. I was originally a little bit too cocky actually going into this one, because I was under the impression that there was absolutely nothing on his team that could hurt me, and for the most part that's true, except for the fact that it's not. The main issue of this fight seems always actually to be the Magneton. Despite the fact that Manectric is technically the stronger Pokemon, this one seems to trip everyone up, and it does me included. Why? Because it does happen to know both Thunder Wave and Supersonic. In case anyone either didn't watch last week's video or just doesn't know, Shedinja can be affected by status infliction moves like Toxic and Confusion damage. But you will be glad to know that when we can get past Magneton, we are plain sailing, because Manectric can't do anything to us, despite the fact that it really looks like it should have Bite. It doesn't. And that means that we've got 3 gym badges safely secured in our back pocket, and now begins the slog, or the first slog, of this game. We head up through Follower Town into Meteor Falls, where we have a single cutscene that is just, well, worthless if you ask me, before doubling back on ourselves, heading up to the top of Mount Chimney and trying to beat Maxie. Up there in front of the volcano, he tries to deliver us a speech that I just can't be bothered to listen to, and we end up in a fight. Now, if I was to tell you that Maxie had a dark type, a fire type and a flying type on his team, you would think I should be pretty scared, because, well, all 3 of those moves are the only moves that can hit us. But in truth, I just wasn't frightened, and I don't know why, because I really thought I should have been. But no, I sort of felt good. I don't know why, because this fight proved to mean that I was resetting for a good 25 minutes until we actually overcame it and won, but we did manage, in the end, to beat him right here at the top of the volcano. And that meant that the next fight was something I was dreading, as we have to take on Flannery, the fire type leader. It was at this point that I stopped to record the Fire Red Leaf Green video, and subsequently spoke to Discord, who reminded me that there were other moves that Shedinja could learn, namely Swagger and Toxic. Now Toxic I did, yes it counts as cheating, but I did change my moveset to have Toxic here for the Flannery fight, for the exact same reason as Blaine in the last video. Now looking back on it, I question whether or not I needed it, because with Swagger, it makes the confusion damage do twice as much damage. Well, more than that essentially, because you can use Swagger on a Pokemon that's still confused to increase its attack by another 2 stages. So I'm gonna say that I didn't need to use Toxic here, and confusion damage could have done it itself, and therefore we can overlook my cheating transgressions, please? Anyway, you're gonna have to put up with it, because I did it, and therefore we claim the 4th badge, and our moveset looks like this from now until the end of the game. Well, most of the way near the end of the game, but we'll get to that when we get there. For now, we have to go back to Petalburg and try to beat our father. As we stand before our father, we look him square in the eyes and we issue him a challenge. We lock eyes with him and we say, "I dare you to spank me, Daddy." Which is just the level of putting off that we needed, because he made the rest of the fight a little bit easier for us. I say a little bit easier because he has a Vigoroth and a Slacking that both know Feint Attack, a Dark type move that can never miss, and that means can always kill us. Now I suppose the good news for us is that we have Swagger and they have pretty ridiculously high attack stats. So with the aid of the attack boosted confusion damage, we actually don't struggle too hard to claim this badge. I mean, I think I only did this on the 3rd or 4th attempt, which is really good going, seeing as there are some regular trainers that take me more than that. Anyway, the next fight is one I wasn't particularly looking forward to either, because we have to fight Brendan outside the Weather Institute. Now, this time things are a little bit different, because although he still has the Lombre, he doesn't have Astonish anymore. He's replaced it with Nature Power, which was just a massive mistake, because it now means that he can't hit me either, and the only Pokemon that he has at the moment that can do that is a Slugma. And the good news about that is that he wasn't difficult to beat last time we fought them, and it's much the same here. So once we get rid of the Slugma, this fight is just piss easy, because yet again, the worst Hoenn starter, Mudkip, now Marshtomp, can't do anything to my overpowered Ghost. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, because the issue is that we beat him and now we have to fight Winona, and she has, oh boy, she has an entire team that all of which can hit me with Aerial Ace. And this is the precise moment in the game where things stopped being fun and started being really painful, because it takes multiple attempts. And it takes, quite frankly, multiple hours, and I'm not exaggerating, this fight took hours. Because essentially what we need is, for the most of it, Confusion to do what Confusion does. That's not the issue. It's being able to get Swagger off enough times to boost the attack power before it snaps out of Confusion. If it snaps out of Confusion, it takes me out, because it's naturally going to use Aerial Ace. Now I say naturally because my thought process going into it was, it's always going to use Aerial Ace. If there's a move that the AI can use that will kill me, it'll use it. Now I learnt later on in the game actually that necessarily isn't the case. But for this point, I was terrified. So every time they snapped out of Confusion and a little message popped up that said X has snapped out of Confusion, I just reset. Now, maybe I could have saved myself time by not doing that, but it doesn't matter, because as you can see, we claim the 6th badge. That is the worst badge in the whole game. This was the worst. I hated it. And I'd like to say that things get easier from there, and yeah, well, in the long run they don't, but for now they do, because we get to do the runaround game that everyone loves so much. We head up Mount Pyre, we collect the magma emblem, we head through the middle of the volcano where we meet Maxie, who stupidly awakens Groudon, and then challenges us to a fight, because of course he does. Now his team's changed a little bit. He's now got a Crobat instead of a Golbat, or a Zubat, he had one of them, but he's now got a Crobat and he's got the Camerupt still, which is a problem. They are a couple of what can only be described as pains in the arse. I'm talking prison shower levels of pain in the arse. I'm talking sitting on the bar stool with the metal pole straight through the middle and that going straight through it and up your arse. Levels of pain in the arse. Because I don't know why, but for some reason this Crobat did not want to get hit by Swagger. And when it did get hit by Swagger, it seemingly wanted to snap out of Confusion every time. Now I haven't used save states up to this point, and the good news is I still don't need them for this fight. I will confess, I needed them later on, because there was absolutely no way that I was going to go through Glacia without using them. I wasn't even going to risk it, but for now, every single time it doesn't get hit, I reset and start again. So this fight really only took me about half an hour, which in terms of this playthrough is no time at all. Yeah, this was a long one to record, and I'm alright with it. It was good fun for the most part, just not this fight. Because half an hour later, we've beaten him, then we've got to run through Slateport, and we have to run through the Aqua Hideout in Lily Cove, and then we have to go and fight Tate and Liza. Now, Tate and Liza, they did worry me. Now, the main problems here are obviously Solrock and Claydol, because Claydol has Ancient Power and Solrock has Flamethrower. So you can probably imagine how horrible it would be if they were ever on the field at the same time. Now, luckily for me, in this fight, it didn't take that long, and they weren't on the field at the same time, I don't think. The worst problem for me, for some reason in this playthrough, was getting rid of that Xatu. It just didn't want to faint, which meant that Claydol, Lunatone and Cyrock all went down quicker than I think they had any right to be fair. They should be more challenging. But at the end of the day, we took on a gym where we could have got flattened way too easily with a single Pokemon that with only one hit point, and we won. Winning aside, actually things don't get any more difficult from there. We have to go down to the seafloor cavern, we have to fight Archie, and his team is pretty much the same as Maxie's but with a Sharpedo. Luckily for me, his Crobat seemed to really enjoy Swagger. I don't think I missed. No, do you know what? I didn't miss a single Swagger that counted in all of my resets, thinking about it now. And I was only down here for 10 minutes. It was really quick. I was very surprised. Now, Sharpedo wasn't a problem because it has a high enough attack stat that, you know, knocks itself out fairly easily. After that fight, we obviously have the ridiculous thing where he accidentally releases Kyogre. Yeah, because you accidentally release a sleeping, super ancient being on the world that decides to wreak havoc. People just do that by accident, you know. It's up there with having a kid and not tying your shoelaces and falling flat on your face in front of everyone in the school playground. So with that, we head up to the surface to see the cool weather. We get told not to do anything stupid and instantly do something stupid, having then to head down into the Cave of Origin to speak to Wallace, who tells us that we know where the sleeping Rayquaza is, despite the fact that we've never even heard of the Sky Pillar or Rayquaza up until this point. But somehow we managed to know instantly where to go as well, so we head there, head up to the top, we awaken the sleeping lizard who tells us in no uncertain terms to get out of his swamp before heading back and witnessing the best cutscene a Pokemon game has ever given us, hands down. And then we head in to fight Hoenn, thinking initially that we weren't going to have any sort of problem, and realising pretty much the same as Watson, that we have problems. Problems in the shape of a tiny little love heart, because Love Disc outspeeds us and it hits us with a sweet kiss every time. And, you know, confusion's a big problem for us, because we get hit by that, we get hit by ourselves, and that's game over. And between you and me, I didn't want to chance it. Luckily, grinding isn't that much of an issue because there are a sheer number of trainers in the gym that you can fight, really, for easy experience, because none of them can really hit us. So we do that. We do have to go and get another couple of levels, but that's not a problem. And then we head back to tackle the fight. And yeah, Hoenn, the 8th and final gym badge in this entire game, can't hit us at all. And that makes winning as easy as getting off a Toxic and getting off enough Swaggers. So yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really have much to say here other than the 8th and final gym was a complete and utter pushover. And that means that the main fight now is against the Elite Four. I'm not going to talk about the Wally fight in Victory Road because I have other stuff to talk about now. At this point, I consorted with Discord yet again to see whether or not we could beat in some way, whether or not it would be possible for me to go back and do Fire Red, Leaf Green, Shedinja, and we found a way. So ladies and gentlemen, and whoever else has decided to be here, maybe you've got your dog with you, your pet cat with you, maybe your goldfish, or if you're lucky enough to have a ferret, you'll have one of them with you. The point is, we're going to talk about the Elite Four, and to do this, we are going to jump back and forth between Kanto and Hoenn. Going to start first of all with Lorelei. So Discord came up with the idea that when you evolve a Nincada at level 25, the Ninjask wants to learn Screech, which means if you were to do it that way, you could have a Shedinja with Screech. So we replaced Confuse Ray with Swagger and Sand Attack with Screech. And this just proves that I gave up way too early, because it didn't take me that long to get rid of the Dugong. And this blew my mind. I was like, yes, we've done it, we've defeated Dugong. And then it brought out Lapras, and that has Confuse Ray, and we need to dodge confusion damage. Now luckily, that wasn't too difficult, because all it took was a Lapras to take a single point of damage, and then it was essentially Bob's your uncle. The train keeps rolling from there. We get rid of Lapras, we get rid of Cloyster, who comes out, who was the only other Pokemon that could hurt us with Hail, and from there, the rest of her team is plain sailing, so we can beat Lorelei. So from the first member of the Elite Four in Kanto, back to the first member in Hoenn. We have to fight Sidney, and he's on the same level of Lorelei because he is a Dark-type user. But if I'm honest, being nice to him, and this is being nice to him, he has a very lackluster team, against the Shedinja at least. Now obviously we've reached this ridiculously late point in the game, and the strategy hasn't changed at all since Flannery at least, so Swagger does what Swagger does best, and raises the attack power to a degree that his entire team is essentially null and void. He's way too easy to defeat. So with the first member of the Hoenn Elite Four down, let's go back to Kanto and talk about Bruno. Now I really wish that his team posed me more of an issue, but it just doesn't. I mean, this is really simple, and I don't think I need to say any more. Does he have a Pokemon that can attack me? I don't know, but the first time I went through it, I won. So if he does, he's not very good at using them. Now someone who does have Pokemon that can hit me and is very good at using them is Phoebe. If I was giving out a medal for Hoenn's toughest bastard, this lady would receive 12 of them, because my god was she a pain. I would honestly say I would rather step on a pile of Lego without any socks on my feet than have to do this fight ever again. She has Shadow Punch, which she rarely ever brings out of the arsenal, but it has 100% accuracy. It's up there with Swift and Aerial Ace. What do we do against a 100% accurate Ghost type move against a Pokemon that can only get hit and one hit kills it of a Ghost type move? Well, to be fair, the answer is very simple. You just have to raise that attack power faster than you can set up a Toxic, because confusion damage will kill it in about 2 or 3 turns if you have the attack power raised enough, and that's just plain sailing, because Toxic would need that time to rack up its damage. Now don't get me wrong, if you get that attack power raised and you get a Toxic on as well, then you're plain sailing. But to be frank, this took a long time. For some reason, her first Dusclops just didn't want to take enough confusion damage. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and that meant that I had to just carry on grinding away at this fight until eventually, we managed to beat all of her team, and I didn't even use a save state. Although the same can't actually be said for the next couple of fights, and the first of which is clearly following the theme. We're going back to Kanto to talk about Agatha. Now, where to begin here? I use save states in the same way I use save states throughout that playthrough, at the start of each Pokemon, not in the middle. She was a bit underwhelming. I genuinely expected her team to be more of a pain than it actually was. Something about the Screech in this... Screech. Screech is just... Look at it. Look at what Screech is doing. You do Swagger to raise the attack power by 2 stages. You do Screech to lower the defense by 2 stages. This is just insanity. This is a brilliant strategy, and I'm ashamed at myself for the fact that I didn't come up with it sooner. In fact, I didn't even come up with it at all. This is all on Discord. If I hadn't have spoken to Discord, I never would have realised Shedinja's full potential in Kanto, and that was my mistake to make an entire video on it without expending all of my options. Now at this point I am aware of Screech, that I could even use it here in Emerald, but I haven't used it so far and I'm not going to use it unless I absolutely need to. And we may be at the point where I absolutely need to, because now comes the dreaded Glacia. Now I know that Arantula has been keen to see how this fight went, and if you're watching you might want to leave now, mate, because this fight was way easier than I think it had any right to be. Now doing my research going into this, I was kind of okay with it. I knew that it was probably going to be easier than the Lorelei fight was in the last one, because Celio has a higher attack power. Walrein can't even hit us, so we get that far, we're golden. And Glalie has a set 80 stats in everything, so in terms of the attack power, confusion damage was always going to do more against Celio. But I didn't expect it to be able to do as much as it did. Now I have to thank Swagger for that, but you can't argue with it. It was plain sailing. I use save states at the start of every Pokemon, but that's because I'm paranoid. This was my third attempt, and that was it. It was 3 tries, and she was out. Why is she this easy? I'll never know, but for some reason her Pokemon didn't use Hail when they could have used Hail, and then they took enough confusion damage that they couldn't use Hail, you know? This was, well, it was fun for me, but it's really a shame for her. This was her time to shine. This was her time to derail the challenge and take pride in it, but I guess she has to wait. So now I have the pleasure of talking you through 2 amazing dragon type trainers in Lance and Drake. Starting with Lance, obviously, because that's the way I've done things here. Now, what can I say about Lance? He has potential to be a pain. His Gyarados knows Bite, he's got an Aerodactyl that knows Rock type moves, and that's about it, if I'm honest. I would be lying if I said this was a first time victory, because it most definitely wasn't. At one point I even made it through to his final Dragonair, only to get stalled out to heck and have to reset the fight. But do you know what? It's one I managed without save states eventually, and I'm proud of that, because once you get past those first 2 Pokemon, there's nothing he can do, or if there is something he can do, he doesn't choose to do it, because whether or not confusion damage hits and the toxic damage racks up is irrelevant. Eventually, everything else falls, and that is Kanto's Elite 4 done. Now the question is, can we do the same with Hoenn's, in my opinion, much deadlier Elite 4 final member, Drake? Now he starts off with a Shelgon that knows Rock Tomb, which can be a problem. But all problems have a solution, and in this case it's just as simple as spamming Double Team. Now if we set up our sand attacks as well and Rock Tomb had 100% accuracy, that would then be looking at a 12% chance of hitting us, which is easy, but it doesn't have 100% accuracy, and so the likelihood of it hitting us after 6 double teams is so small. So small, in fact, it makes a steroid user's testicles look like the stone that blocked the entrance to Jesus' tomb. But yeah, that's essentially all that I worry about with Shelgon here, is just setting up 6 double teams, and then when that's done, we let confusion damage do its thing. You got Toxic available to you there. Shelgon isn't a problem. The issues come with Flygon, Aerial Ace on Altaria, and Flamethrower on Salamence. Now, Flygon luckily isn't that much of an issue, because for all of its high attack power, it still seems to be fragile as fuck when it comes to confusion damage, which makes sense given that high attack power actually. Swagger does its job there, Flygon isn't an issue. Salamence is an issue. Now those of you with eagle eyes may have noticed the little discrepancy with the levels here, and yes, that means that Salamence outsped us. And when it outspeeds us, it always uses Flamethrower, which kills us. So I had to leave the Elite Four, go back on a grind, and come back at level 61 like you can see here. Luckily for us, at this level I outsped everything on his team, and Salamence eventually goes down, and I'll be honest, it's no different to that. It's just as straightforward as whacking on Swagger, whacking on Toxic, and letting it kill itself. When it does that, we are done all but for the champion, and we're going back to Kanto to talk about MDB. Now, if you haven't seen that video, go and check it out, but I had my sights set on MDB from way too early on, to the point where I neglected to remember that Lorelei had Hail, which caused me problems in that video. So I managed my stats in that video. I managed them in the same way that I did here. Reset for perfect IVs, max out your EVs in speed. Things were good. Going into it, I made sure that I was faster than his lead Pidgeot. And I'll be honest, that was it. His entire team really was way too straightforward and simple. So you want to know the answer? The correct answer? Can you beat Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green without an attacking Shedinja? Yes, you actually can. You can beat Kanto with a Pokemon with 1 HP that can't attack anything. MDB falls, and Shedinja is the head of the Pokemon League in Kanto. But the question is, can it go 2 for 2, and can it beat the Hoenn League? Now, this one was a hell of a lot more straightforward than maybe most champion fights should be. Wallace, the water type user, well, his first Pokemon, Wailord, can't attack me at all. His second one, Tentacruel, can hit me with Toxic, but again, you set up double teams on the first one, and you let confusion damage do its business. Then it has nothing that I need to worry about until we reach Milotic right at the end, and that thing has Toxic. But again, with 6 double teams set up, you could put 6 sand attacks on it, reduce it down to around the 12% mark. Obviously Toxic isn't 100% accurate to begin with, and then you just let it do its business. And do you know what? Hoenn as a league was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I mean, all 4 members of the Elite Four can in some way hit Shedinja, and that should be a big issue. But I had more problems with Norman's gym than I did with the entire Elite Four and Champion, minus having to go back and grind on Drake, obviously. But the fact that a random gym leader gave me more hassle than the strongest trainers in the game, that blows my mind. And Shedinja has won the Hoenn League. Wow. Now, as if that wasn't impressive enough, we still have one more fight to go. We still have the post-game fight with Steven. Now, some things are a stretch, and even I thought this one was going to be impossible until I look at his Pokemon stats, or at least potential stats. I go back to that website, I believe it's called Veekan.com. Fantastic website. You put in the information, Pokemon, and level, and it gives you the range that its stats could be. Now, his fastest Pokemon is Claydol, and that is just amazing for me, because we've taken one down earlier in the game. We've done it at Tantalizer. We can do it here. So I put in those information, I get the range, and I learn that I have to level up to level 71 to take on this fight. Which to me seems like an absurd level, but actually in comparison, we are still levels lower than his strongest team. And with that all said and done, he has a lot of problems to overcome. Now, I use save states again at the start of every Pokemon. Can you blame me? He has a full team of 6, and only one of those members is a free ride. that's Aggron. And as it turned out, he knew that, or he must have known that, because Aggron is the final Pokemon that he would send out. Now, I did invoke the reusable TM rule that I was made aware of, actually, thanks to Discord again. And I did that in order to replace Toxic back with Will-O-Wisp, because let's be honest, going up against Steel-type Pokemon, Toxic is a waste. It's a wasted slot. Now, if I'm honest, looking back at it, I probably would have felt better replacing it with Screech, and it probably would have made this fight a lot easier, but Will-O-Wisp is what I went for, and I actually don't think I needed it. Now, I believe I used it, I may be wrong, I can't remember, I'm not looking at the footage right now, but Swagger is a hell of a move, and what can I say, other than the strategy of set up confusion damage and a status affliction that was the basis of this entire run, has been so successful beyond my wildest imagination that we can beat the post-game fight with Steven using only a Shedinja with no attacking moves. And all of these moves, bar Will-O-Wisp in this generation, are moves that it can learn legitimately. So, at the start of this challenge, I asked a simple question. Can you beat Pokemon Emerald with only a Shedinja with no attacking moves? Now, we knew that you could beat Pokemon Emerald with a Shedinja because people like MDB, they've done it. The answer is yes. You can do this without attacking anything. How? I don't know how, and I've done it. I don't know if you can tell. This confuses me, but I'm elated. I am over the bloody moon. This was one of the best challenges I've ever done. Question is, would I recommend it? Now, if you have to be mental. I know I'm mental. If you are mental enough to even want to try this, absolutely go for it. Absolutely go for it. Download the ROM, download PK Hex, edit yourself in a Shedinja, and give it a go, because it is so much fun. The fact is that even if you wanted to do things illegitimately, there are so many good status affliction moves out there that you could have a lot of fun with Shedinja using illegal movesets. But yeah, this challenge is done. We did it. We beat Hoenn, and don't forget, we beat Kanto with a Shedinja with no attacking moves. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got absolutely no plans to take this concept forward into the other generations, but if you want to see no attacking Shedinjas throughout all of the generations and make that a theme, you just have to let me know in the comments, because I am a slave to the almighty view, and those views come from you guys. So if you guys want to see more Shedinja no attacking moves, or even just Shedinja playthroughs in general, you let me know, because if that's what you want, I'm happy to do it. Now everyone, thank you so much for watching. This video has been a long one in the making, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm so proud that I've been able to bring it out to you in just over 2 weeks. But guys, please remember, like and subscribe. They're free, they really help out the channel, and they help get this video out to as many people as possible. Now, I don't want to big myself up, but this is a ridiculous challenge, and I've managed to complete it, and I would really hope that this video gets out to as many people as possible, because who doesn't like to watch people abuse game mechanics and beat them in crazy ways, huh? But yeah, please do whack a like on this, please do subscribe, and leave a comment with any challenge suggestions you might like to see me take on in the future. Recently, I can only apologise that I've been neglecting the comment suggestions in favour of these wacky projects that I've come up with, but that's going to change, and next week I am doing a challenge that has been requested by someone, so we're going to go back to the old format for a bit. So yeah, you let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.